This is the 19th episode of Check It Out, Carnegie-Stout Public Library's podcast. My name is Sarah, and I'm an adult services librarian at Carnegie-Stout. This episode marks a number of anniversaries we never imagined experiencing as a result of the pandemic, including the origins of this podcast. Just over a year ago, as everything shut down, the librarians of the Adult Services Department found ourselves in a suddenly empty library building. There was a lot of uncertainty, but we knew we wanted to find ways to reach out to the community, and we decided to try recording a podcast. We'd like to thank each of you who have joined us on this journey as we reimagined what a library looks like, along with so many other changes in our daily lives. In this episode, we'll reflect a little on the past year, as well as share some of what we're working on in the months to come. Before we begin, though, I'd like to take a moment of silence for all of us to reflect on everything and everyone we've lost in the past year. It is so strange to be in this recording room and know how to plug in these microphones and use all this equipment. And this last year has just been constant change.
Absolutely. Just the way that we live our lives and everything has been impacted in the last year. I've read a lot more in the last year than I have.
I have read a lot less in the last year.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a good distraction and sometimes it's a...
I have no focus anymore.
Yeah, that can be a thing.
Yeah, so reading can be a wonderful distraction, and having fewer activities and things on your schedule can give you more time to focus on that. I totally get that, and I'm really jealous of you. But, I sit down with a book, and, 5 minutes later, I'm up and, doing something else. I just can't focus anymore.
Yeah, it affects people different ways, or the same person will go back and forth,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You gotta forgive yourself. You have to accept yourself, and
as they say, be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself, yes. Be kind to yourself and be kind to those around you, because we're all in it.
The library, we have had to reimagine the way things will look. We're used to having our big events and our I run the Great Reading Challenge, and every January we usually would have a big party, and I'd usually get 40 or 50 people, and we'd all sit together and eat together, and that, was taken away. We couldn't do some other traditional programs that we've done just because we can't have so many people in one space.
We don't have a space anymore.
Right.
We've got materials that are in quarantine. That's right. When you return your items to the library, we keep them in quarantine for 3 days at this point. We're still doing that for you.
Yes.
We don't have access to that room.
Yeah. And so we've had to learn how to do the book clubs through Zoom and do all these fun author events.
For goodness sake, everyone everywhere has learned what Zoom is.
Right. Right.
I mean, we are living in the future with our video calls.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool in Back to the Future when I was a kid. And here we are, and it's not nearly as cool as I thought it would be.
The one positive thing about Zoom, I think, is that a lot of folks that we want to have come talk to our library and do events with them are now in reach that were not in reach before, because we could not, necessarily bring someone in from New York or bring someone in from Seattle.
It's a much different thing to have someone be able to be in their house and join a program, whether they're a presenter or an audience member, versus having to drive hours or take flights. It's a very different commitment to say, oh yeah, I can do that 1 hour library program in Dubuque, Iowa from my home in California.
Right. Right. Yeah, I had an author from Seattle, and I had the audiobook narrator, Rebecca Gibble from the East Coast, and it was great. We were able to make it work. So that's been a positive that's come out. But we've just had to figure out how to keep people engaged and to have some, fun things to do.
This year has been a bit of a reminder or an opportunity to look at what our priorities are.
It's definitely, being at home a lot more than we ever were. We have time to think about what matters and who's important and how we want to spend our time. But we're looking towards the future and hoping that things will continue to improve and we can continue to expand and create new events for our folks in Dubuque. Do you think our pace of living has slowed down?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I remember at the beginning of the pandemic when everyone was at home, it was lockdown time, and they showed all of the wildlife and smog, the wildlife was returning and the pollution was dissipating. And it's you see the impact of a busy, fast-paced world change within days.
I think that whatever comes next, we've all learned a little bit more patience, a little bit more resilience, how to take a challenge and go, okay, this is hard, this is scary, but I know how to face it. I can work through this problem.
Hi, my name is Charlene, and I'm a frequent library patron and one-time guest on this podcast. I want to thank everyone at the library for their amazing work this past year. I've been homeschooling my kindergartner, and it would have been infinitely more difficult without the efforts at Carnegie-Stout to continue making materials available. The curbside pickup deserves a special shout-out. I really appreciate not having to bring a 2- and a 5-year-old into the building right now. Just one less thing to worry about. At some point, we'll start coming to the library as a family again, but until then, thanks for all the support during this crazy time.
Hello, Ben from Adult Services here, and I just wanted to reflect on a virtual book group I started with a few friends during the pandemic, as it's almost the 1-year anniversary of that as well. It started when a friend of mine said we should restart a book club that we did in college, and asked if I wanted to read the book The Plague by Albert Camus. I was kind of reluctant to start a book club because I like choosing what I read, but decided to read this with him because the book seemed relevant, 1, and 2, it would be a good excuse to schedule video chats and connect with him and maybe a couple other people. It was an interesting read, The Plague, because at the beginning of the pandemic, it was easy recognizing the same confusion, fear, and other mix of feelings that the characters were going through. Although the plague in the book is of the bubonic kind, the way the characters deal with quarantine and the mental strain of dealing with an invisible threat were relatable. The book was really good, but even better was connecting with friends I hadn't seen in a long time, including one living in Missouri now who I used to play music with. We've discussed several more books since that first one. The second book was the classic dystopian book, The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, a pioneer black woman science fiction writer, writing at a time when the field was predominantly white men. With the turmoil of this past year, this book was all too sobering. For the third book, we read another science fiction book, but decided to do a book-movie discussion. We each read Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer and watched the movie based on it. I'll just say they were both very different, and it was fun seeing who liked which one better. One of us liked the movie better, 2 of us the book. I was on Team Book, by the way. By the fourth book, we gained a new member, a friend of my Missouri friends who lives in Portland, Oregon. We read Viet Thanh Nguyen's work, The Sympathizer, a work that won the Pulitzer Prize in 2016, as well as many other awards. It's literary fiction with a bit of a spy novel element. It takes place during the Vietnam War, with the protagonist half Vietnamese, half French, working under the South Vietnamese army but secretly spying for the North. It's satirical, brutal, and completely eye-opening. It was a unique perspective on the war. I'm looking forward to reading the sequel that just came out in March. It's called The Committed. Most recently, we started Down the River Unto the Sea by the prolific Walter Mosley. It's the first book in a new series of his. It's a modern noir private detective story. It's been a shift in what we've been reading so far, but I'm enjoying it. Like a lot of things in the past year, I wasn't planning on starting this reading group, but in this case, I'm thankful it happened. It's been a great way to connect with friends, also meet someone new, and has provided nights of engaging conversation. If you're trying to read more or just want another way to stay connected, I highly recommend it. If you're hesitant, start by doing a buddy read with a long-distance friend. You can even do it over the phone. Or Carnegie-Stout has several virtual book clubs you can participate in. Check our calendar or call the reference desk to know what the next books are. One more note, all the books and the movies I mentioned are available at Carnegie-Stout.
I'm joined today by another adult services librarian that you've heard on this podcast before. Angie, thanks for stopping by.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Sarah.
So we wanted to give you a little bit of an update on what's upcoming at the library in the next few months, sort of what we're seeing for the future.
So there's still time to check out the April Geek Out book club book. Book is called Just One Damned Thing After Another by Jody Taylor. That book club meets on April 12th, 6 p.m., and you do have to register. You can register through our website. There's a Google link in the description of the event, or you can just call and talk to a librarian. We can register you.
And that phone number is 563-589-4225. And so the book is called Just One Damned Thing After Another. Okay, Geek Out is mostly like sci-fi, fantasy stuff. Is this a sci-fi or a fantasy?
More fantasy. There's time travel involved. There's like adventure and humor. A lot of humor is the first book in a series, and it's about historians who do time travel.
Time traveling historians.
Time travel historians.
That is kind of a classic of the genre. I'm guessing it's probably a bit of a character study.
Yeah, there's lots of interpersonal drama and humor.
And I know you've got another book club coming up in April. What are you reading for that one?
That's the Mystery and Mayhem book club, and that is called IQ by Joe Ide. That meets on April 21st at 6 p.m. IQ is very street smart and a smart guy, and there's a lot of like deductive reasoning and Sherlock Holmes type investigating in this. It's an urban setting with a Sherlock Holmes vibe.
He's sort of the smartest man in the room.
Yes.
Nice.
So that'll be a fun book club. That's April 21st. Well, Sarah, do you have anything coming up this spring?
I do. I'm really bummed that our Green Iowa AmeriCorps friends are not here to help me talk these up. So forgive me if I get any of these details wrong. But we've got a couple of cool things that we're doing with them this April. Starting with the Earth Day Upcycled Art Show. That's going to be happening from April 17th to 22nd. We'll have a little exhibit down in the children's room. If you'd like to participate in this, and it is open to all ages, so adults, kids, teens, whole families can work together to create an upcycled project for display in the library. You can drop those off at the reference desk on the library's second floor starting on April 16th.
Sarah, what is upcycling?
Great question, Angie. So upcycling is a little bit like recycling, where you take something that otherwise might be considered trash or garbage and you repurpose it into a work of art or a functional object. Like you can take a wine bottle and turn it into a lamp. I've seen some really cute things. So it can be beautiful or practical, but you're taking that trash and you're upgrading it into something cool and better. So then the grand finale of the Upcycled Art Show is that on Earth Day, April 22nd, our Green Iowa AmeriCorps partners will be announcing the winners for this contest. And yes, there will be prizes. And then our next partnership is going to be on Tuesday, April 27th at 6:30 p.m. This is going to be a virtual landfill tour. So our experts at the Dubuque Metropolitan Area Solid Waste Agency will give you a virtual tour through Zoom of Dubuque's landfill, and then they'll be available to answer your questions. So if you've ever wondered what it is that happens to your trash after you put it in the bags on the curbside, they can answer those questions.
That actually sounds really interesting. And you'll think about those things, about where stuff goes.
Absolutely. If you want to register for that, definitely visit the library's website, carnegiestout.org, or give us a call at 563-589-4225. Thank you for listening to this episode of Check It Out, Carnegie-Stout Public Library's podcast. We appreciate everyone who has listened to or contributed to the podcast over the last year. A special thanks to this week's contributors, Sarah, Angie, Charlene, and Ben. And as always, the music for this podcast is performed and recorded by Ben Eagle.